Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have an exciting episode ahead, packed with valuable insights. So please stay with us until the end as we dive deep into the latest developments in generative AI. Let's get started.
Last time, we dug into how AI is transforming our jobs. Today, though, we're tackling something maybe even bigger. What is the future of human creativity itself as we start to co-evolve with these incredibly powerful tools? And to help us unpack all of this, I'm so glad to have our expert guest back with us. Welcome.
It's great to be here. This is a topic with, huge implications for all of us, for sure.
Absolutely. So here's the plan. We'll kick things off with the next major leap in AI, multimodality, and see how that's creating brand new creative partnerships. From there, we'll dive into some of the really tricky ethical questions this all brings up, how it's actually changing our own minds, and finally, what we can do to shape a positive creative future together.
So let's start there. I think most of us have gotten pretty used to AI that works with a single input, right? You type in some text, you get an image. But that's clearly just the beginning. What is that next great paradigm shift that's really going to redefine what these tools can do? In a word, multimodality. We're moving from AI that understands one sense at a time to systems that can process text, images, audio, and video all at once, just like we do. It's a huge step towards a more human-like intelligence.
You know, we humans are naturally multimodal. When you see a dog, you don't just process the image. You hear its bark, you might feel its fur. Your brain just seamlessly combines all those inputs into a single concept. Multimodal AI is trying to do the exact same thing. The core challenge is creating what's called an embedding space. Think of it like a universal translator for ideas, where the concept of an apple has a similar address whether it's a photo of an apple, the written word apple, or the sound of someone taking a bite. The AI learns this by analyzing just massive amounts of data, which forces it to develop a much more abstract, deeper understanding of the world.
That's a really great way to put it. So how does this actually work in practice? I mean, what's the difference between an AI understanding multiple inputs versus generating them? That is a great question. So on the understanding side, a perfect example is Google's Gemini. In their demo, you could literally draw a duck, show it to the AI on camera, and ask, is this a good drawing? Gemini could see the drawing, hear your question, and then give a text response. That is a completely new way of interacting with a machine. Now, on the generation side, we have something like OpenAI's Sora. You give it a text prompt, and it creates this incredibly complex, high-definition video. To do that, Sora has to have a deep understanding of the world, the physics of snow, how a puppy behaves, and it synthesizes all of that into a single, coherent output.
Okay, so with these unbelievably powerful new tools on the horizon, what does this actually mean for creative professionals? I'm thinking of industries like visual effects, which are always on the cutting edge. How are they adapting to this new reality?
Yeah, that's the key question. And, people in the field are already figuring out what this new partnership looks like. Paul Salvini from DNG, the visual effects giant, he puts it perfectly. He says the focus is shifting away from the human as a craftsperson who's bogged down in the mechanics of execution to the human as a creative director, focused purely on intent. So AI isn't replacing artists. It's becoming this powerful new tool in their toolkit that handles all the tedious work. Just imagine an artist who needs 20 different concept sketches by morning. The AI can generate them, but the artist provides the vision and makes the final, critical call. It's a massive force multiplier for creativity.
So this new workflow, you can really break it down into 3 steps. First, the human provides the why, that initial spark, the vision, the emotional core of the project. Then, step 2, the AI generates the what, a huge array of possibilities and variations, way more than any human could create on their own time. And then finally, the human steps in as the director, curating, refining, and guiding the AI's output toward a meaningful result. In this new world, the most valuable skills are going to be taste, judgment, and a really clear creative vision.
So it really sounds like the human is still very much in the driver's seat. The AI is this powerful engine, but it absolutely needs a skilled driver to tell it where to go. Exactly. And Steve MacPherson from Milk VFX makes a fantastic point here. He says that AI's imperfections are actually a feature, not a bug. It's wrong just often enough to keep you on your toes, to force you to think critically, and to challenge its suggestions. It stops you from just becoming a passive operator. It's a tool, not a magic wand, and it really needs our intuition and our experience to be truly effective.
This new creative partnership, it leads us into some very deep, very murky waters. Because as these tools get better and better at mimicking an artist's style, we're faced with a question that honestly feels like it's straight out of science fiction. Do we have the right to create new art on behalf of the dead? I mean, we're already seeing things like AI-generated comedy specials from deceased comedians and new songs from singers who are no longer with us. How do we even begin to navigate this?
It is a huge ethical challenge, and if we don't have a clear framework, we really risk devaluing our entire cultural heritage. The best approach I've seen is built on 3 key pillars. First, and this is non-negotiable, you need the artist's explicit consent, given before their death. Second, there has to be absolute transparency for the audience, so no one is ever misled about what they're seeing. And third, and this is probably the most important, there's a principle of integrity, meaning the AI can be used to fulfill an artist's known intentions, but never to just invent new ones from whole cloth. These 3 pillars, together, give us a really powerful lens for judging any use of this technology.
And what's really powerful about this framework is how it helps us make sense of real-world examples. So, on one end of the spectrum, you have restoration. The Rijksmuseum used AI to reconstruct missing parts of Rembrandt's The Night Watch, but, and this is key, they were guided by a copy made during Rembrandt's lifetime. Here, the AI is a restorative tool, fulfilling the artist's known intent. This is highly ethical. In the middle, you have what we can call completion. The AI completion of Keith Haring's unfinished painting was a huge violation. The whole point of that piece was that it was unfinished. It was a powerful statement on the AIDS crisis. The AI acted as a conceptual saboteur, completely destroying the artist's intent. And then at the far dangerous end, you have resurrection. Things like that AI-generated George Carlin special. Here, the AI is an identity impersonator, fabricating entirely new material. This is just a clear violation of all 3 principles.
Okay, so the ethical lines are actually pretty clear when you lay them out like that. But what about the law? Does it protect an artist's legacy from this kind of, I don't know, digital grave robbing? Well, that's where we run into a really big problem. The legal protections are all over the map. In the United States, an artist's moral rights, their right to protect the integrity of their work, they just end when they die. This creates a huge legal loophole for posthumous AI generation. In Europe, on the other hand, these rights, called droit moral, are seen as an extension of the artist's personality, and they are perpetual. They never expire. This gives an artist's heirs a much stronger legal standing to protect their legacy. So the European model, which is more about human dignity than just property, is frankly much better suited to this new challenge.
So far, we've talked about how we're changing the technology and how it's changing our creative work. But this is a two-way street. As we become more and more intertwined with these tools, how are they changing us? How are they rewiring our own minds?
This is maybe the most important long-term question of all, and the early research is raising some pretty serious red flags. We're seeing what some are calling a performance learning paradox. For example, one study with over 1,000 students found that while a basic GPT model helped them with their homework, their actual exam scores went down. Another study found that while AI helped people perform a task better, they became less accurate at judging their own abilities. Their metacognition was reduced. And maybe the most concerning finding comes from an EEG study that showed that using an LLM for writing was linked to weaker brain network connectivity. In other words, the tool was doing so much of the heavy lifting that the user's brain was just less engaged. So the key takeaway here is that AI's impact on our brains isn't set in stone. It really all comes down to how we use it. On the one hand, you have the path of passive reliance. This is where the AI just gives you the answer and you end up outsourcing your thinking to the machine. This leads to our skills getting rusty, what you could call cognitive atrophy. But on the other hand, you have the path of active engagement. This is where the AI is designed to be a guide, not a crutch. It gives you hints, not solutions. It forces you to think for yourself. This path can actually make us smarter and more skilled. The design of the AI interaction is everything.
That's a really important distinction to make. Could you just break down that paradox for us in a simple way? Absolutely. It's pretty straightforward. When you use AI, your performance on a task goes way up. That's the high bar on the chart. You write a better essay, you solve a problem faster. But when you take the AI away, what you've actually learned, what you can do on your own, is often much lower. That's the low bar. It's kind of like using a calculator for all your math homework. Sure, you get the right answers, but you never actually learn how to do the math. We could be creating a generation of people that are brilliant at using AI, but lack the fundamental skills to create on their own.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. The technology, the new creative workflows, the ethical minefields, and the cognitive impact. Let's try to pull it all together now. As we look to the future, how do we balance the incredible promise of this technology against some of these very real risks?
Well, the potential upside is just mind-boggling. First, we're looking at a true democratization of creation. Imagine an indie filmmaker with a great story but no budget, who can now create stunning cinematic visuals. Or a teacher who can create custom animated lessons for each of their students. This could unleash a wave of creativity from a much wider range of voices. Second, hyper-personalization. Think of an AI tutor that adapts to your learning style in real time.
or a movie that changes its plot based on your choices. And finally, think of AI as the ultimate eureka engine for science. An AI that can read a research paper, analyze its diagrams, and watch a video of the experiment could connect the dots in ways that no human ever could, accelerating scientific discovery at an incredible pace.
But we have to be clear-eyed about the risks. First, economic disruption is a given. The value of purely technical creative skills is going to plummet, which will require a huge shift in our education system and our workforce. Second, there's the danger of cultural homogenization. If we're all using the same AI models trained on the same data, we could end up with a very bland, average culture, squeezing out originality and diversity. And finally, the biggest risk of all is what's being called the reality crisis. If any video, image, or audio can be convincingly faked, our shared sense of truth could completely unravel, which is nothing less than an existential threat to a functioning society.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. The incredible potential and the profound risks. If you had to boil it all down for us, what's the one thing our audience should really take away from all this?
The most important thing to understand is that this is not a fad. This technology is becoming a fundamental part of our lives, and the coevolution between human and machine creativity is already underway. This isn't a future that's just happening to us. It's a future we are actively building right now with every tool we use and every choice we make. The human's role isn't going away, but it is changing, from a craftsperson to a creative director, from a lone genius to the conductor of a powerful new orchestra.
So the future is multimodal and deeply integrated into our lives. We've seen how this creates a new kind of partnership, one where humans provide the critical why. We've explored the ethical lines that we absolutely must not cross, and that cognitive paradox that forces us to design for engagement, not just ease. And this leaves us with the ultimate question. It's not if we will co-evolve with these tools, but how. The technology will provide the what, but we must provide the why. So who is directing our creative future? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, like, and share. And don't forget to hit the bell for more from Tech, AI, and beyond.